On
I
my
can have
mobile, not on the computer.
We're online now anyway, so we've just made a start. Hello there, welcome everybody. Welcome to our webinar. Get reskilled on how to find a well-paid job in pharma. And I have two people here with me, Jeff and Adrian. And just to give you a little bit of an overview of what we're going to be covering today, let me share my screen with you, okay? So give me 1 second there. Okay, sorry, I need to make some changes here. Okay, so you should be able to see that slide there. And what we're going to be doing today is just a quick introduction, and then we're going to talk to both Jeff and Adrian, and that'll be for about 20-25 minutes, a 10-minute QA session, and then a quick 5-minute wrap-up, okay? So anyway, Jeff and Adrian, perhaps if you could just give us a quick introduction and tell us a little bit about yourselves, and just a few other questions as well too. A few other points as well. You'll see below the video on your screen, you're going to see a chat box. If you have any questions there as the webinar progresses, just log in there and type in your questions, and we come to the Q&A section, we'll deal with them then. Okay, so let's move on to our two main people here. Jeff and Adrian, could you tell us a little bit about yourselves?
Who do you want to go first?
Say, Adrian, could you go first?
Okay. First of all, Donald, thanks very much for giving me the opportunity to go through this. Just a brief background. I started off in engineering, then I moved from engineering, and actually, funnily enough, making spectacles into laboratory work, in optical laboratory work. And I moved on. I qualified as an optician, and then I did a further honours degree kind of a thing in anterior eye. And as I found from 2007 on, the work situation was drying up a little bit. So I said I'd kind of stick with it. In 2012, I made a decision that after losing my job again, I said that was it. I'm definitely having a look at doing something else. So I compared what I have previously done with my optical laboratory work, the manufacturing of spectacles, and what I've learned through the optics. I said, what could I compare it to? And there's a lot of crossover in that and the pharma sector. So I went to this, the only way I can explain it is speed dating for engineering in Cork, and it was pretty shocking, really. I think that you need to be pretty well prepared for these things, and I wasn't. And what that made me do there and then, that right, that's it, I have to go back and reskill, even though I had a certain skill set not geared towards pharma. I said I certainly need to reskill. So what I did was I did a selection of courses. I did my ECDL. I did a couple of other pharma companies in Cork, only one day things, and then I was lucky enough to get on to get reskilled biopharma. It was interesting enough, in the decision to go for biopharma was in the previous courses that I did. A very wise man advised me to go look at the biopharma sector, and that's the sector that seems to be doing well. I can't comment on any other sector, so that's the one I targeted. So I particularly targeted one or two companies that were near enough to me, and I put the course that I thought was suited best to that. And from that, I've did the first year and the second year, I'm finishing off the diploma, and I got employment. I was actually out of work for 2 years, from 2012 to 2014, and I got work in 2014, and I'm still there since.
That's great. Okay, great. And how about yourself, Jeff?
Well, once again, thank you for the opportunity for me to share a little bit about my experience and hopefully be able to influence other people to achieve their goals. As you see, I'm a mature individual. I'm a degreed mechanical engineer to master's level, and I've been in engineering for over 25 years. And I've done a lot of consulting. I have some side degrees and things like that, but I've done a lot of consulting work. But it's always been in industrial sectors, not the medical and pharmaceutical sectors. And I found that trying to get into the this regulated environment from a medical perspective was very difficult. And with the working for myself, and a lot of the contracts that I was having were diminishing because of the economic state. And I thought, well, the medical and pharmaceutical industry seems to be thriving. How do I get in there? And the only way I saw myself being able to get in there was to apply for a job in there so that I could gain first-hand experience. So basically, searched for a course, found this particular course, and as soon as I put it on my CV, I hit the jackpot, so to speak. So I'm involved in the engineering sector, specifically on new product developments and projects in a medical device company.
Okay, that's great. Okay, I'm delighted to hear that. And I suppose you kind of answered this already, but how did you come to choose pharma? Like, what was the main reason you chose this sector?
Is that for me, yes?
Yes, Jeff.
Okay. Well, basically, again, being involved in the design of specialized equipment and special purpose machines and new product development and that kind of thing, my skills in light and heavy engineering, were not the key. It wasn't the foundation that the pharmaceutical arena was looking for, but from a work perspective and being able to get into that sector, I needed to gain the experience. So looking at where the work is, I needed to go where the work is, and I found that there were lots of projects, lots of activity within the pharmaceutical and medical device industries, but not having experience, not being in there, I found that a lot of doors were being closed. Mm-hmm. So but it was a drive to be able to say, in secular industry, work is very scarce. I mean, Adrian himself was saying that, on the engineering side, he's been put out of jobs and all that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. That's exactly what I found. So, in order to take the engineering knowledge that I had and attempt to get into the pharmaceutical stroke medical device industry, I needed something more to give me leverage. In order to be able to gain the sort of income that I was looking for to survive, because I did not want to end up in the realm of the unemployed.
Yes. Okay, that's great. Okay. How about yourself, Adrian? What was the main reason that you chose pharma?
I think the main reason for me was, funnily enough, when I worked as an optician, I actually went to quite a lot of pharmaceutical companies. And I nailed down all the contracts for the safety eyewear and the safety aspects. I just liked the regulations, the way things were run. There was a set format to things, the way things were done. I had a bit of experience with the FDA through contact lenses and solutions and protocols and stuff like that already. So what I found was that there was a lot of crossover there for it. And I said, I think I worked indoors all my life, and I think, I wasn't going to go looking for an outdoor job, if you know what I mean. So I knew it would be something, it would have to be indoors, it would have to be something related to what I did. And there is a lot of crossover in the pharma sector and the optical medical sector. And tying in with that, the engineering side on my early days with the making of the specs and the laboratory work. Mm-hmm. And it gelled well, I thought. I just go back to Jeffrey's point, I did find it quite difficult to get into this sector. I think, and I'm not joking when I have probably somewhere of 50 plus applications recorded on an Excel sheet, which I gave up doing after about 5 months, and it was quite difficult to get in. And once I think I had to get reskilled, the biopharma course. I think the very mention of the word biopharma anyway, it's kind of a big buzzword at the moment. And that was certainly a door opener for me. Having said that, it was still difficult to get in. You know, I did the particular place where I'm working, I did 4 interviews for it. So, you know, there is a lot of uphill struggle, but however, it does pay off.
Okay, that's great to hear. Okay, let's move on then.
If I could just add, Donna, you know, I found that when I was attempting to, put in applications to try and get into the regulated environment of pharma and medical device, a lot of the personnel agencies that you work with, it would be, straightforward question: do you have experience? And I'd say, not specifically at working at a company like that, and you try and justify that, your experience would be good in that environment. No go. Doors were closed if you had no experience whatsoever. So, that can be rather disillusioning at times, But yeah.
Did you find that things changed after you were able to put biopharma, or you've been trained to work in a GMP regulated environment? Did you find that changed?
Well, I think, one of the things, again, I mean, I was in exactly the same boat as Adrian. Okay, I was surviving off my short-term contracts and that kind of thing, but I wanted something that I'd been used to, something that was a little bit more solid, that was going to give me, long period, project or whatever the case may be. And that type of work was only prevalent, in the pharma and medical device industry.
Gotcha.
So from me, again, having all these, full list, again, 50, 100 plus. I mean, I was in exactly the same boat. As soon as I have a master's degree in mechanical engineering. So, now I have a look at this, and here comes this biopharma, opportunity. And, I looked at it and I thought, well, wow, that's going to be great, because, what is it that I don't have that I can't sell to these guys? What is it that I don't know? And what I found out was, and specifically this, I got a lot of this from, at the beginning of the course, really, but it's the jargon that's used. When they talk about value stream engineers, they'll talk about a validation engineer or process engineering and equipment engineers and manufacturing engineers. They've got a particular space for each kind of individual. And if you understand what that is, I mean, outside the arena, when you get asked what's a value stream engineer, you know what I mean? Like you can make certain assumptions, but in secular industry, I've never found that kind of terminology being used. And the same with, things like, the jargon on GMP and GEP and, the principles and the procedures that are used and that kind of thing. So when all that information and the jargon is coming out of the course, I found that I was in a position to be able to talk the talk. So if I was, speaking about anything from an engineering point of view, of course, we talk about installation qualification or operational qualification and product qualification, that kind of thing. Okay, then it's all the terminology that they use, and when you use that, which I learned from the course, all of a sudden people are interested in you because you're kind of talking the same language. And for me, as I said earlier, as soon as I put that it was a work in progress, but I was busy with this BSc in biopharma, all right, etc. I tell you what, all of a sudden people were interested in me.
That's great to hear. Okay, great. And if you could just move on to some of the specific steps or concrete steps you took when you began your job hunt. I mean, I think it would be very useful to some of the people listening in. So could you just talk a little bit about that? Like, if you had to try and explain it or break it down to a process, like what were the main steps you took with your job hunt? Say, perhaps Adrian, if you could start on that.
I think the very first thing I did was my ECDL for, I don't know what the audience is here, but that's the, the computer driving license. That's the first thing that I did. Every single thing has an MES or some data input system, so I decided to do that. Then I got involved in this engineering training company called Pharma Skills, and that was the crowd that kind of did the one-day stuff. I did kind of an induction with Janssen and a few other pharma places like that, and conversion to pharma medical device industry course. They were like over a couple of days, and I did a couple of other inductions. But I just think that from that I got like I knew that wasn't enough. You know what I mean? So I knew I needed something more concrete than that. So I did the biopharmachem course on that, and I think the other thing is, I know it's slightly off the mark with get reskill, but there are lots of companies doing in Ireland certainly doing a lot of free courses now. I don't know what it's like across the rest of the world, but it seems to be pretty big here at the moment. But as I said, just to bring that, to tie that back into the engineering, the speed dating as they call it, the big thing that came out of that really is I had to do something in the biopharmachem line. And just to reiterate what Jeffrey said, I think that the very fact of using the word biopharma certainly opens doors. And the other thing that I found is I'm 14 months in pharma now, and I can now apply for stuff that I was no way could I apply for 14 months.
Yeah. That's great.
So,
one thing I've noticed, just on my own, something from my own experience in dealing with people and retraining, a lot of them may have not looked for a new job in 5, 10, in many cases 15, 20 years. And looking for a job back in the 90s, well, it's a very different situation now. We're in 2016. Do you have any specific steps or advice on how you go about advising people to get back into the swing of things? I mean, finding a job is almost a skill in of itself. So could you speak to that a little bit?
Well, just on that, Jeffrey, just I'm roughly the same age as you, I'd say. So so I don't think age is a factor on that. I just think you need determination and a little bit of a wake-up call. Like it isn't going to come to you,
Yeah, you have to get out there. You have to get out there and hustle. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, and you've got another very important point there that Jeffrey said was the jargon. You have to talk. Like there's no point in going to these fellas because they will blow you out of the water, which I was blown out of the water in that evening. So much so that one of the guys said to me, "I bet you don't even have the word engineering on your CV," and I pretty much didn't. I had it on the second page and the third page. So it's just a big learning curve from that. I think you do need to target though what your skills are and where you can place them. Like there's nothing wrong with any trade, but if you're an outside tradesman who's worked outside all his life, and the next thing you lose your job, which a lot of people did in Ireland, and next thing suddenly you're landed with a job indoors, if you're lucky enough to get a job, and you're indoors, the next thing you say, oh my God, I just can't hack being inside. People need to think about those things, they need to think, where they've come from, what skill set they have, and they can't be too far apart, I suppose, from what they've done, because, like, I couldn't go to be a surgeon, do you know what I mean? So you need to kind of gear what you have to a certain degree to what is possible.
Yeah, I think that's very true. You need to try and leverage with your previous experience with any new roles you're targeting in pharma. That's certainly been the experience we've had over the last number of years. Jeff, do you have anything to add? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the biggest concerns, I think, about the pharma medical device side of things is the experience that they want you to have is not necessarily the engineering experience or stuff like that, but it's more to understand the regulated environment.
Yeah.
Now, I've been in other regulated environments, but not the medically regulated environment, so to speak, with the the FDA and that kind of thing. The amount of paperwork that they have in there is horrendous, and towards the the quality requirement and impact on product and patient, with everything that is done is so intense, and like I said, you do a lot of reading, because there's a there's a check and a recheck and a balance and then a recheck and all this kind of thing on the whole lot. So it's almost the pressure that you have from the regulated environment that they want to know that you can cope with or that you have experience in. Being an engineer and my skills, you end up being a product of your experiences. And my 20 or 25 or 30 years or whatever it is, I'm not telling you how old I am, experience that I've gained, all right, and where I'm at is absolutely invaluable in the company that I'm in at the moment. Yes. I haven't been in this regulated environment for 10, 15 years or anything like that, right? And yet when I'm in there and I see some of the younger engineers and that kind of thing, I'm an asset value to the company, and I know that I contribute in a very solid way, in where I'm at. So for me as an individual, the influence of the Biopharmachem course is more one of perhaps an induction, if you like, towards getting over the bridge to get in there.
Yes.
But it doesn't help me. I mean, I'm a senior projects engineer in the company, and I'm responsible for small term projects, and hopefully as I get involved I'll be managing larger term projects, right? So in where I'm at, the success that I'm doing in my job is a result of my experiences gained in secular industry. So but the bridge to get there has been the Biopharmachem course that has got me there, and I have gained fantastic information from that course, and I'm better off for doing it than forcing my way in without it, if you understand what I'm saying. So there's a definite need for that. So anybody wanting to get in, to the pharma / medical device industry, when you're applying to these places, you get doors slammed in your face, left, right, middle, top and bottom, as Adrian and I have both expressed. But you know what? You need to believe in yourself, and you need to realize that you have a service to sell, and that your time will come, and you just got to be able to keep pushing, and do not get disillusioned. Remain positive, and sometimes you can get so disillusioned. And with these guys, when you go onto a telephone interview, which is what a lot of these companies start off with, and you can't see the person in front of you. If you're depressed or you're disillusioned or you think, oh, here we go again, it comes out in the tone of your voice and where you're at. So you've got to be able to be upbeat and that kind of thing. So there's a lot to do with how you interact when your media of that interaction is limited. If it's only the voice and that kind of thing. And if you come across as confident, then, and I'm here because I believe that I will be good for your company. And again, obviously the usual interview skills where you need to find out a bit about the company so you can ask questions and show that you have a definite interest in what they do. Yeah, no, look, this, from what I'm saying is that you just have to have a dogged determination to keep going and get where you want to be, and you will get there.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the same with any job. You do need to be quite persistent with your applications. Like we do see, it's almost like the LinkedIn effect. The amount of applications per given job has really increased dramatically in the last number of years. And perhaps one of the reasons for that is that the ease at which you can make an application online, it's just so easy now. People tend to apply for everything higgledy-piggledy. I mean, you end up getting an awful more applications for any given job. What that means is you just need to be more persistent, and you're going to have to apply for an awful more jobs before you begin to get traction in the market. Let's move on to our next question. I mean, you talked a little bit about this yourself, Jeff, some of the do's and don'ts of the process if you're actually looking for a job. Do you have any other comments on that, things you should do and things you definitely shouldn't do?
What shouldn't you do? Well, I mean, what comes to mind again is don't get disillusioned.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, your interaction with the company and where you're at. I think one of the things that you do need to do, because, and I say this tongue in cheek, appreciate that we're kind of pretty public here, but there is a certain amount of arrogance that comes from that type of environment. And it can be quite daunting when you're in there, that you know that you can contribute, and yet in that contribution, you're almost being belittled because you've never had experience in that environment. So but again, you need to overcome that, and you need to be able to perhaps show a little bit of respect for the people of what they are, and what you hope to gain from being part of the company, but at the same time what you can give back to the company, for the opportunity of being in there, and to deal with it, that it's a two-way street and it's a win-win situation.
Okay, great. And how about yourself, Adrian? If you were giving someone some advice, some do's and don'ts when they're actually looking for a job, out following up on job applications, the like, any advice?
Well, I think if myself and Jeff got together and just did up a little framed Excel sheet of the applications that we have done, we can send it quite happily on to anybody. Just and it is important because you can actually get quite disillusioned and distracted from the whole thing. And as I said, I gave up. I think I can't remember. It was 50 something odd. I gave up recording the applications. But look, as Jeff says, look, you have a certain skill set, and you can apply that, I think any job that you go for. But I know I was saying it on the other article, that when you are doing this course, when you have decided that you're going down the route of pharma, I know it might sound very simple, but go and get yourself a proper computer, Wi-Fi, and printer. I know it's a little bit of expense. You've got to spend money to make money. After that, as I said, just going back to the point I made earlier, I had some very good farming friends, and they could not possibly work in the pharma sector because it's indoor all day, and you need to make sure that that's something that you want to do. And as I said, the skills that you have to have a certain bit of a crossover, I think, to what you're going to look at doing for the future. Mm-hmm. I mean, I did 25 years of optics, and I got a pretty high level in it, and literally within 6 months everything just fell apart. It was gone completely. The money went, the jobs went. So I was actually unemployed for 2 years. And on the other article, the Get Skilled article, I said that 6 months was enough for me to realise that I knew I wasn't going back to what I'm qualified at.
Yeah.
And I knew that I was moving on. You need to look, as I said, look at what you're doing, and in the do's, look at what your skill sets are. Try and compare them to something. And the other thing there is try and target a place, try and target a company, that do a bit of research on companies and target them, and try to look at what do they do. I mean, I'm on shift work at the moment. I never did shift work in my life up to 14 months ago. I absolutely love it. It's like I have 4 days off, 2 days on, 2 days.
Okay, that's great.
So there is stuff like that. Some people might hate that, so that's about it.
Okay, and I think we talked about this before. Some of the biggest challenges you face, obviously, one of them is, you need to be extremely persistent and determined with your applications because it just takes time to get traction in the market. Any other challenges or any other final bits of advice you'd like to give people who are listening in?
I just think Jeff.
Sorry. Maybe Jeff, you can go first, sir.
Okay, I think what I found is there was a lot of contradicting advice. All right, that's out there. Like when you're busy, doing your, you're surfing the net to looking for jobs and things like that, and you can register on various sites and have these email alerts coming through. And there's a school of thought that says, oh, that's the last thing you do, and other people will say, well, cheapest, that's one of the best things you can do. And LinkedIn, I remember. I had a LinkedIn account, but it was pretty feeble, and a person advised me. He said, "Listen, get your LinkedIn account, up to date, and fill it with appropriate information." And I got a bit of guidance on that, and so on, and all these things, for me, the contradiction in a group of people saying yes, another group of people saying no. My experience is, you go for it. When you have these alerts coming through down on your email or on your smartphone, you can just keep tabs all the time and you can have a look. And as they come in, you can see what's there. I mean, there's the ones that you can get from Get Reskilled. There's Donna, somebody else, I can't remember the name. Anyway, but every month she's like putting all the vacancies that are available in Ireland in pharma medical device industry up, and they're right there, and you can see each and every one of them and go through them. It's a fantastic service that is provided, that you have them all in the one place. So and again, when you've got that kind of information to work with, you're not at a loose end. If there are people out there that are, that are employed and not sure what to do and where do I go, get in touch with Get Reskilled and have the opportunity of having that monthly email come through. And there's hundreds of them that you can push yourself towards and apply and that kind of thing. So there's lots of work, but eventually you strike the target.
Okay, great. Adrian, any final bits of advice here?
Yeah, no, certainly I do think LinkedIn, the websites, the pharmaceutical websites, and the list that comes from yourself. It's yourself, right?
It is, yes. We actually go through about 120 companies. We go through the job pages. It takes a bit of work on our part, and then we collate all the information. We send that out every 2 weeks. Yeah. Actually, I'll reference.
That's singularly the best individual place to look at where the jobs are. The other thing is, I know, and it's the age-old, I don't know if Jeffrey's used to this word, nepotism, but anyway, if you do know somebody in the company, and I've got this from pretty high up, have a chat with them, and I've certainly done that in the past. It may not have got me places, but at least when you have the course behind you, you have the jargon, the terminology, and you'd be confident enough in talking to somebody then about that. I do think that if you do know somebody, have a chat with them, say you're interested in joining the company. We have a saying in Ireland, which you probably know, that a dumb priest never got a parish.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, that's right.
So, speak up and don't be afraid, and don't get disillusioned. So.
Well, I know, actually, going back on that as well, I actually completely agree, and it'll certainly give you an inside track as to what the company is looking for, what it's like working there, and would you be a good fit for that kind of company, for that kind of industry. Something else, another piece of advice I give to those who are listening is, with your CV, by all means, I see a lot of CVs, and honestly speaking, most of them really are not really up to scratch, not up to par. They need a lot of work. I would highly recommend that you go through some materials on our website, and there's quite a lot of stuff there and try and show your CV to at least 3 other people and get their advice on that. You'd be amazed at some of the things they point out to you. You know, you're looking at the CV, the same CV over and over again, and you're going to miss a lot of stuff. It's called the curse of knowledge. So it's absolutely essential that you get an outside pair of eyes to have a look at your CV and get feedback on that. Another thing as well too, depending on the specific role, you may be able to identify 3 sub-roles within the particular area you're targeting, and just make up 3 sample CVs or 3 template CVs. And if you see role A, well, you've already got the template made up. It'll make customizing your CV to that specific role that little bit faster and help save you a bit of time. The same with, if you see a B-type role, well, you have a B-type template which you can customize to that role, and consequently, if it's a C-type role, then you'll be able to customize your CV to that particular type of role as well. It's just a time-saving technique, because as you guys have pointed out, you do have to make a lot of applications before you get traction in the market. Okay, just 1 or 2 other things. I just want to stop sharing my screen here, and I want to go through some other resources on our website and just show people what they are. So if we can see that. Everyone, 1 second there. So I hope everyone can see that on our website, and just give me 1 second there. But on our website, if you visit it, and under the Find a Job, first thing we have is CV templates for jobs in pharma. And again, as I mentioned, we do see people with a lot of problems with their CVs. So by all means, go and visit these 2 CV templates, download them, fill them in. It'll certainly save you an awful lot of work when it comes to trying to build out your own CVs. The next element our next resource I would recommend you check out are the job boards. And we have job boards for Ireland. We actually have 2 job boards, one which looks at general jobs in Ireland, and we also have a specific jobs board for project validation type roles as well. They're a little bit more advanced, but if you want to have a role, or if you're focusing on a role in validation or computer systems validation or commissioning qualification, you should definitely check that out. In addition, actually, on the webinar page you're looking at, on the right-hand side, you see a link to the ultimate guide to finding a job in Ireland. I'd strongly suggest you check that out as well too. That's a pretty comprehensive document. There's over 109 pages in that, so it'll take you a bit of time to get through. But I'd certainly, for those of you interested, I'd strongly recommend you download that and get yourself a cup of coffee and go through that at your own leisure. And finally, in the pharma sector this year, and we'll be coming out with a blog post on this very shortly, but there's currently approximately 2,500 jobs available in pharma in 2016. And so there's still a lot of opportunities for those people who are considering making the switch. So anyway, we're coming to the end here of the webinar, and again, Jeff and Adrian, I'd like to thank you very much for participating in this and for taking time out of your schedules. And for those of you listening, if you'd like to follow up with us, or if you have any additional questions, feel free to contact us. You can contact me at donna.fitzgerald@getreskill.com, or alternatively, you can contact us on our website as well. So thanks very much for joining us, and I look forward to hearing from you with any questions that you may have. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Okay. Jeff, Adrian,
Excellent.
thanks again. Okay, bye-bye. Take care.
Excellent.
Bye.
Bye. Get some sleep. Good luck.
Okay, no worries.